The sky burned in golden hues over the Banawe rice terraces, as if the sun itself were bowing to the ancient land of the ancestors. The sound of crickets mixed with the wind that caressed the fields, and there, atop a hill, a 6-year-old girl gazed at the horizon with dreaming eyes. Her name was Amara, daughter of Mang Tonyo, an honest but indebted farmer, and Aling Kili, a woman of deep faith. Amara grew up surrounded by stories, legends of Anitos, guardian spirits, and a time when women chose their own destinies. But that night, the story that would shape her future was told by real voices. Walking under the light of torches, 2 men climbed to the family home, one of them wearing a barong Tagalog of pure linen, his shoes still shining despite the mud. It was Don Marcelo de la Vega, a powerful landowner from the Ilocos region, accompanied by his young son, whose face was hidden under a cap. The boy barely spoke. His eyes met Amara's for just a moment. Cold, distant, Mang Tonyo knelt before Don Marcelo. "Utang na loob, sir. I don't know how to thank you for the help." Don Marcelo simply nodded with a cold smile. "Words don't repay debts, Tonyo, but actions do." Silence. Then, Celie gripped her daughter's hand tightly. The little girl didn't understand. A chill ran down her spine as she heard the sentence, "Your daughter will be my son's wife when they come of age. It is sealed." Amara frowned. She tried to speak, but her mother's grip tightened even more. The adult smiled, as if it were something natural. That was how matters of honor were resolved in old families, with silent promises and pacts sealed by forced smiles. That night, as the cicadas sang, Amara looked up at the sky and whispered, "Inang Maria, why me?" But the sky remained silent, as if it knew the answer would only come many years later. And when it did, it would bring no comfort. The years passed like the tide along the shores of Palawan, quiet, inevitable. Amara was now a young woman with deep eyes that carried more weight than her age should allow. Ever since the promise made when she was just 6, her life had stopped being hers. The coastal village where she grew up was beautiful. White sands, crystal clear waters, children running barefoot to the sound of the chapel bells. But to Amara, it was only a stage where she performed a role she never chose. She woke at dawn, helped her mother with chores, attended the Catholic school. But her lessons never included dreams. She was taught to obey, to stay silent, to smile, even when she wanted to scream. Her mother would often repeat, like a prayer, "Blessed are the women who know how to be silent," and Amara, out of love and fear, obeyed. At school, while her classmates spoke of universities and summer crushes, Amara kept her eyes down. No one knew. No one could know. She was promised. Her future was not love. It was duty. Sometimes at night, she walked alone along the beach. The sea was the only place where she allowed herself to dream. There, the sound of the waves muffled the screams trapped in her chest. She imagined herself studying in Manila, working with books, exploring the world. But she always returned home before the sky turned too dark, before reality reminded her of who she was. On her 16th birthday, instead of a celebration, she received a letter stamped with the De La Vega crest. It was cold, formal, and read simply, "In 2 years, Amara will be ready. Prepare her." It was that day Amara realized they were teaching her to be a wife, not a woman. She began etiquette lessons with a wealthy widow in the village, learned to cook dishes she didn't like, practiced smiling in front of the mirror. But deep down, her heart grew quieter, like a detuned guitar forgotten in the corner of a room. The promise that bound her had no chains, but it weighed heavier than iron, and the silence that surrounded her was so loud, it sometimes hurt her ears. But something inside her still resisted. A whisper, a spark. And though no one could see it, that spark was growing, waiting for the right moment to set everything on fire. Summer arrived with intense heat and the scent of ripe fruit in the air. Palawan seemed to smile more this time of year. The sea was bluer, the sky clearer. Even the children seemed lighter. Amara, now 17, felt the weight of time in her body. Each day was a countdown. To the wedding, to the end of what she called her own life. But that summer would be different. At the insistence of their neighbor, Doña Lourdes, Amara was convinced to help with the preparations for the fiesta of San Roque, the village's patron saint. It was the most anticipated event of the year. Colorful stalls, dance contests, traditional dishes, and fireworks reflecting over the sea. During rehearsals for the folk performance, Amara met a boy. He appeared as if carried by the warm afternoon wind, dusty sneakers, an easy smile, and eyes impossible to decipher. "Elian," he said. "I'm from Cebu, but my uncle lives here. Came to help with the fiesta." Amara, who usually didn't talk to strangers, found herself smiling. Elian was different. He joked with an accent, danced terribly, and loved manga. Silly things, but they made her laugh. In the days that followed, they kept seeing each other. Always in public, always with excuses, decorating the chapel, testing the sound system, carrying boxes of bibingka and lumpia. But just one look, one silence between words, and something unspoken grew between them. Amara felt guilty, but she also felt alive. For the first time, someone saw her as more than a promise, as someone with thoughts, ideas, desires. With Elian, she felt whole. On the eve of the fiesta, Elian asked her to see the fireworks before the setup. "I bet you've never seen it from up there," he said, pointing to a hill with a view of the sea. From the top, they sat in silence, the sky slowly tinting orange. Elian looked into her eyes and said, "You seem like someone who's always trying to run from something." She swallowed hard. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to scream. But instead, she replied, "Maybe I just want to remember who I am before I forget." He took her hand without asking. Amara didn't pull away. That night, she didn't sleep. Not out of fear, but because she felt that this summer would be her final breath, the last piece of freedom before the door closed forever. And deep inside, something whispered, "You will remember this summer, because after it, nothing will ever be the same." The De La Vega mansion smelled of freshly cut flowers, polished wood, and rehearsed silence. The servants moved like shadows, never meeting her eyes. With every hallway she crossed, the feeling of being watched grew. Not by visible eyes, but as if the very walls knew something she didn't. For 3 days, Amara was prepared. Dresses were fitted, hair was styled. Instructions were repeated like prayers. Smile. Be grateful. Don't question. Honor the De La Vega name. In the mirror, she saw the reflection of a bride. But she didn't see herself. On the morning of the wedding, the sky was too clear. No clouds, no wind, as if even the weather had been bought. The ceremony was set in the mansion's garden. White flowers everywhere. A golden decorated altar. Silent guests far too rich to display real emotion. Amara walked down the aisle with her heart screaming inside her. Each step echoed with memories of lost childhood, denied freedom, and the summer she'd left behind in Palawan. And then she saw him, Lucas de la Vega. Tall, sharp-featured, dark hair perfectly combed, a flawless suit, but his eyes, cold as glass. When she reached his side, he looked at her like one inspects a possession. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. A chill ran down her spine. The priest began the ritual. Rehearsed words, hollow vows, soulless promises. When it came time to say "I do," Lucas answered without hesitation. Amara paused. The world seemed to fall silent. She looked at the priest, then at the guests, then at him. A stranger. But his hand tightened around hers, firm, like a threat dressed as a gesture. And she said, "I do." Polite applause, artificial smiles, soft music. On the way back into the mansion, Lucas didn't speak. Not in the car, not at the reception, not on their first night. He simply looked at her, and before disappearing into his own room, he said something that sounded more like a sentence than a welcome. "You are now a De La Vega. Act like one." Amara locked herself in her room, looked at the white dress, cried in silence. There, in that luxurious bed surrounded by silk curtains, she realized she had married a ghost, a face without a soul, a man who didn't seem real. And for the first time, she felt something very wrong was about to happen. The days after the wedding passed like fog, formless, colorless, voiceless. Amara lived in the mansion, but she wasn't part of it. She was a decorative presence, like the porcelain vases or the antique paintings on the walls. Lucas didn't sleep in the same room. He rarely spoke. He left early, returned late, smelling of cigarettes and silence. He never touched her, never looked at her for more than a few seconds. The mansion, from the outside, was majestic. Inside, it was a labyrinth. Hallways too long, doors always locked, servants who spoke too softly, and rules. Do not enter the north wing. Never go down to the basement. Do not walk alone at night. No one explained why. It was simply the way it was. At night, Amara began walking the hallways in silence, barefoot. She heard voices behind walls, doors closing with no one around, muffled whispers. One day, while trying to open a door near the main staircase, she was stopped by the housekeeper, Tia Belen, a woman with a hard expression and watchful eyes. "This is not a place for you, Señora Amara. What's behind it? Things from the past. And the past, my dear, is sometimes best locked away." The tone was polite, but her eyes were a warning. In the house's library, Amara began searching for anything, but the books looked untouched. They were just decoration. Until she found a notebook hidden behind an encyclopedia. No cover, only yellowed pages filled with broken phrases, like shattered memories. She cried at night, but no one heard. "The dress is still in the closet. Why does no one ask about her?" Amara's heart raced. Who had written this? That night, she had a nightmare. She walked through the dark mansion, and a voice called out, "Amara, you'll be next." She woke up sweating, gasping. But when she looked at the mirror, something was written on the glass, as if traced by a finger. "Leave while you still can." Amara stepped back, looked around. No one, no footsteps, no sound. The mansion was silent, but not at peace. And in that moment she knew, this house was hiding a truth, and she was not safe inside it. In the days that followed, Amara began to distrust even her own footsteps. Every creak on the wooden floor, every door that groaned, every glance exchanged in the hallway. Nothing felt innocent anymore, not even the silence. The mansion was a theater, and she felt like the only living thing on stage. On a Tuesday morning, while opening her wardrobe, she found something unexpected among her clothes. A folded piece of paper hidden in the pocket of a dress she never wore. Shaking hands, racing heart, she opened it. "You are not safe here. Trust no one, not even him." The handwriting was hurried, almost desperate, but firm. The note slipped from her hands. She looked around as if she might catch the writer hiding behind the walls. Nothing. No sound. No sign. Not even him. The note mentioned no name, but she knew who it meant. Lucas. In the days that followed, Amara began watching more closely. The servants seemed to walk in circles. The same faces, the same gestures, as if rehearsed. Some doors were now locked with new padlocks. At night, she heard footsteps outside her room, long after the mansion had gone to sleep. And Lucas now seemed more alert, more present, more dangerous. "Have you been sleeping well?" he asked one night, forcing a smile. "Yes," Amara lied. "Good. Sleep is important, to keep the mind clear." He held her gaze a second too long, then simply turned and walked away. That night, she slept with the door locked and a chair jammed under the handle. Days later, while walking through the garden, she found a small child's bracelet among the rose bushes. Tiny, pink, with the name Celia engraved. She had never seen any child in the house. Her blood turned cold. She ran back to her room, opened the same notebook she had discovered days earlier, reread the scribbled fragments, now with new eyes. One stood out, as if shouting. She wore a bracelet. It was all that was left. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, hands on her face, head burning. Someone was trying to tell her something. Someone tried to escape and didn't make it. Now, it was her turn. After discovering the bracelet, Amara stopped being just a prisoner. She became an observer. Every gesture, every word, every glance inside the mansion was now analyzed with cold precision. She barely slept, and avoided Lucas whenever possible. One afternoon, as rain tapped against the stained glass windows of the library, Amara found what looked like an old photo album hidden behind a loose shelf. The cover was dusty, but the De La Vega family crest was still visible. Inside were black and white photos, weddings, gatherings, children. But something caught her attention. A sequence of images featuring a young woman who looked strikingly like her. Same shy smile, same distant eyes. The caption read, "Leah de la Vega, 1998. No one had ever mentioned that name. Flipping through the pages, there were more photos. And then, nothing. As if the girl had simply vanished from existence. Amara went to the housekeeper's room, Tia Belen. She waited until the woman fell asleep in her armchair, as she often did after lunch, and quietly slipped inside. In a drawer locked only by a latch, she found old papers. Among them, a medical report. Patient, Leah de la Vega. Diagnosis: episodes of agitation, insomnia, delusions. Note: transfer for treatment postponed due to family concerns. The paper was torn, but on the back, in different handwriting, someone had written. She tried to speak, They silenced her. The air seemed to vanish from the room. As she turned to leave, Amara stumbled over a box that had fallen to the floor. Inside were forgotten feminine items, a broken necklace, a coverless diary, and a photograph. The photo was simple, taken in the mansion's garden. In the background, among the flowers, a little girl, alone, wearing a pink bracelet. Celia. Amara's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her hands. She ran back to her room, locked the door, and opened the diary she had found. The first page was stained, but still legible. My name is Leah, and if someone is reading this, be careful with Lucas. In the days that followed the reading of Leah's diary, Amara could no longer pretend. Every word echoed in her mind like an alarm. Be careful with Lucas. They silenced her. She needed help, but from whom? Then, during a midday walk in the garden, when most of the staff were busy inside, Amara saw something that froze her in place. Elian! Yes, Elian, standing beyond the side gate of the mansion. His hair was shorter, his face more defined, but the same eyes, the same urgency in his silence. She ran to him. How did you get here? She whispered. I never really left, he replied cryptically. I've been investigating this family since someone very important to me disappeared. Amara told him everything. The note, the diary, the bracelet, Leah, Celia, Lucas. And that's when Elian dropped a bomb. The man you married is not Lucas de la Vega. The ground vanished beneath her feet. What do you mean? The real Lucas disappeared over 5 years ago. The one in the mansion is someone else. Someone who took the name. Someone dangerous. And me. I'm the real Lucas. Amara's heart pounded. Why? Why did you vanish? I had to disappear to investigate my own family. Leah was my sister. She died trying to escape this house. They said she went mad. But I know the truth. And now, so do you. Everything made sense. The cold stare of the Lucas she had married. The lack of affection. The fear in the servant's eyes. The bracelet, the photo, the diary. Amara looked at Elian, or rather at the real Lucas, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. If we're going to make it out alive, we have to act now. And there, in that quiet garden, a new pact was sealed. Not with rings, but with truths. And a promise. The De La Vega legacy would no longer be built on silence and fear, but on justice. That night, Amara didn't sleep. The plan was simple, on paper. Lucas would return to the garden at 3 a.m. She would exit through her bedroom window, climb down the side trellis, and together they would escape through the back gate, where he had hidden a motorcycle under tarps and dry leaves. But nothing in that house was ever simple. At 2:50 a.m., Amara put on the quietest shoes she owned. Her heart beat like war drums. She reread the note tucked into her bra, the same one from days ago. You are not safe here. She turned off the lights, gently pushed the window. The wood creaked. She froze. Silence. Slowly, she climbed down, gripping the trellis with trembling hands. The cold grass kissed her feet. She ran quietly into the garden. Lucas was there, waiting. But just as they took the first step toward the gate, they heard, "Stop!" A male voice, armed. A flashlight lit up the face of one of the mansion's guards, pointing a gun at them. "Go back inside, now!" But Lucas was faster. He shoved the guard against the stone wall and grabbed Amara's hand. They ran. Alarms began to wail. The mansion's lights flared on like giant eyes. Dogs barked viciously. "There they are!" someone yelled. The motorcycle was exactly where Lucas said it would be. He mounted first, Amara clinging behind. The engine roared like thunder, shattering the night's silence. They tore off through the side of the property, dodging branches, stones, and mud. Behind them, headlights, shouts, gunshots. One hit a tree, another grazed Lucas's shoulder. Amara screamed, but he didn't stop. "Hold on tight!" The dirt roads twisted dangerously, but Lucas knew every turn, as if he had escaped this place before. Maybe he had. Maybe. He had once left his sister Leah behind on a night like this. And now, he swore, he wouldn't leave Amara. After nearly 30 minutes, they reached an old cabin, hidden deep in the forest. Lucas killed the engine. Silence. Only the sound of wind through the leaves. "For now, we're safe," Amara cried. Not out of fear, but from everything she had held in for years. He embraced her, not as a lover, but as someone who understood the pain of carrying an unjust past. There, between the trees, wounded and exhausted, something new was born. This wasn't just escape, it was liberation. The cabin was simple. Old wood, the scent of damp earth, 2 chairs, a bed, and silence. But there, in that raw solitude, Amara and the real Lucas assembled the final pieces of the puzzle. Lucas lit a kerosene lantern. He placed on the table several documents, old photographs, and an envelope stamped with the official De La Vega family seal. "This is the part you need to know," he said, looking into her eyes. "The man you knew as Lucas is named Raul Vicente. Raul Vicente, a common name, a calculated face, a hollow heart." Lucas continued. "He was my father's personal security guard. Ambitious. Cold. When my father died, Raul began manipulating my mother, already fragile and unstable. When Leah tried to expose everything, Lucas paused. Rage reshaped his face. She died alone in that house. No one went after her. And I ran. I hid. I investigated. I waited. And when I found out he was about to marry you, I knew. He was about to repeat everything. All over again." Amara sat down stunned. "He never touched me," she said. "Never looked at me as a person. Because you weren't a wife. You were an heir to silence. A trophy. A pawn in his game." The truth was clear as shattered glass. Each shard cut away a piece of illusion. Lucas pulled from the envelope a copy of his original birth certificate, bearing his real name. He also showed proof. Hidden financial transactions, manipulated medical records, and a photo of Raul wearing Lucas's wedding ring, before the engagement to Amara. He built an identity and erased mine. Amara stood up. Now she was the one burning. "If he erased you, then we'll do the opposite. We'll expose him. Every last thread of his lie." Lucas nodded. There, in that small cabin, far from the world, a plan was born that would change everything. The lie would be unmasked. The De La Vega name, finally, cleansed. And love, for the first time, would be born not from duty, but from truth. 2 days later, the gates of the De La Vega mansion opened for the year's grandest social event. The memorial celebration for the late patriarch, held annually as a family tradition and a mask of power. The city's elite were present. Lights, cameras, rehearsed speeches. Raul, still posing as Lucas, was the center of attention. He wore a dark suit, a gleaming wedding ring, and his expression was composed. But something flickered behind his eyes. Unease, because he didn't know. He didn't know that very night, Amara would return, wearing the same blue dress she'd worn the day she left Palawan, her hair loose, her posture firm. Beside her stood the real Lucas, holding documents, recordings, and testimonies. They entered the party not just with evidence, but with truth. The room fell silent. Raul froze. "Who are you to interrupt this?" he barked. Lucas walked to the center of the room, raised the original birth certificate, and declared, "I am Lucas de la Vega, and this man is a fraud." Gasps echoed. Journalists began filming. Lawyers who had smiled discreetly now exchanged nervous glances. The housekeeper, Tia Belen, quietly slipped into the back of the room. Then Amara stepped forward. "And I am the woman he tried to erase. But the only thing that dies is fear." She handed the evidence to the press, showed the documents, and with a steady voice, exposed him. "This man stole a name, manipulated a family, and nearly destroyed another woman's life before mine." Raul tried to run, but the security guards, already briefed, stopped him, arrested, exposed, silence. And then applause. Not of celebration, but of liberation. In the days that followed, Amara returned to Palawan. Not out of duty, but by choice. The mansion was investigated. Lucas's sister Leah's case was officially reopened. The De La Vega name, once a symbol of oppression, was reclaimed by those who chose truth over appearances. Lucas stayed nearby, but he never pushed. Until one day, in the same garden where it all began, Amara said, "If I had to marry today, I'd choose you." He smiled, not as an heir, but as a man, and she, not as a promise, but as a free woman,